I would say there's no concrete answer to this, and I'm all about direct answers when direct answers are able to be given, because I don't like ambiguity when someone asks a question. When I ask a question, I don't like it if after they respond to the question, I still don't know the answer. Otherwise, what's the whole point of why we went to back and forth? That being said, there's no one concrete way you can structure deals. I can tell you we structure our deals with an 8% preferred return and a 70-30 split. And we might have a performance hurdle. We usually have a performance hurdle now. Once a certain internal rate of return is achieved by the limited partner, then it splits. Then every dollar of profit after that is split 50-50. When we started out, we did not have that hurdle. Now we do, based on, we've got more a longer track record, more of a performance history. So now we have that performance hurdle. So we do 70-30 deals with an 8% preferred return. I have seen, and so the thought process, in my opinion, to take on this is you got a couple things to balance. One is the deal itself and what makes the most sense for the deal. And then two is being consistent with your investors so that they know what to expect from your deals. So we choose to only do deals where it makes sense to do a 70-30 split and an 8% preferred return. I have seen others who do deals that are 80-10, so 80% to limited partners, or excuse me, 80-20 to limited partners, 20% to general partners, and even 85-15 limited to general, and even 90-10 limited to general. And on the surface, that is more favorable to the limited partners. But I would argue there are two considerations to keep in mind when the deal is heavily weighted towards the limited partners in terms of ownership. One consideration is if the projected returns if that structure, the 90-10 or the 85-15 or even the 80-20, needs to be in place in order for the projected returns for the limited partners to look desirable, then that's a thinner deal. I'm not saying that's always the case for that type of structure. It could be very well just a very favorable structure to the limited partner. But if in order to achieve a desired return to the limited partners, the general partner needs to structure it so that the limited partners get more ownership, then that leads me to believe that there's less wiggle room in those assumptions. Therefore, even though the limited partners get more of the share of the profits, in total, it's a thinner deal. Therefore, the profit margins aren't as projected to be as great as if it was a 70-30 deal or even a 50-50 deal. So that's one consideration. The second consideration is when it's a 80-20 deal or a 85-15 or a 90-10. Well, when something challenging takes place in that deal, if I'm a limited partner, which I am a limited partner on deals as well, including my own, I invest at least $100,000 in every one of our deals now. If I'm a limited partner on the deal, well, I want the general partners to have significant ownership in the deal so that they care about the results. And so I want them to have not only their money in the deal, which they definitely should regardless of the structure, but I want them to have significant upside for performing and hitting the projections and even exceeding the projections that were outlined whenever I decided to invest in the deal. So there are some considerations to look at both, and this I believe is helpful for both limited partners, passive investors as you're looking at opportunities, but also answering your question. Additionally, I have interviewed people who have a structure where they bring on debt, basically just debt investors. And the difference between debt investor and equity investor: debt investor, you're capped out at a certain percent. Equity investor, you enjoy the upside. Our investors are equity investors, but we also have the preferred return. So it's a quasi debt investment because they are first in line to receive a certain percent on their investment. It's no guarantee of a return, but they're in line to receive a certain percent. In this case, in our case, it's 8% because we do 8% preferred return. But I've interviewed some people who do 6% return, preferred return, and then up to an additional 6% on their money. So they're capped out at 12%, and the general partner receives the rest whenever you sell. Additionally, a major consideration as a general partner when you're structuring deals is when you refinance the deal, are you going to keep your investors in the deal? Or are you going to, based on the amount you return on the refinance, decrease their ownership proportionate to whatever you returned? And therefore, you're gaining more ownership in the deal, and they're decreasing their ownership level because they have less money in the deal. To date, all of Ashcroft deals are my company with Frank. We do not decrease the ownership of our investors whenever we do a refinance or we do a supplemental loan. They maintain the same ownership level. So it's very desirable for the limited partners, based on how we're structuring these deals, at least how we structure our deals, because they're able to get proceeds from a refi or a supplemental loan, and they maintain the same ownership level. They're not getting purchased out of the deal. And that's not the most lucrative way for me as a general partner to structure the deal, but that's how we choose to structure it, because I believe that as our investors do well on the deals, then we'll grow organically through word of mouth, which is one of the top 3 ways that we get new investors coming in: word of mouth, bigger pockets, and this podcast. So that is those are some considerations. One last consideration, and then Theo, I'm sure you have some thoughts. One last consideration is if you're doing a riskier deal, and by riskier it could be it's a distressed deal, or it's in a D area, or there's a lot of CapEx that needs to be put into the deal, or you're doing some sort of development, for sure would qualify as a riskier deal. If you're doing that, what I've seen developers do is have a higher preferred return in their deal. So instead of our 8% that we offer, I've seen developers offer up to 12% preferred return. And on the surface, when I first got started, because I saw this before I had even done one deal, I was thinking, how the heck are they able to pay 12% whenever they're developing something? They don't even have something that cash flows. Well, the answer is they're not paying 12% during the development or the lease up. They're paying 12% once the property is leased up and stabilized. And so that 12% a year on the preferred return, that's simply accruing until a later date. So it's rewarding the investors, the limited partners, for participating in the first couple years during the development and the lease up stage, because they didn't get any money during those years on their money, or didn't get a return on their money. But then during the stabilization part, then they're getting that 12% has accrued, and now they're getting a chunk of profits as a result of it, assuming everything's gone according to plan.